50 Disturbing Horror Stories to Haunt You Tonight. Bone-chilling rainy night compilation. The night loomed heavy, drenched in a sinister rain that splattered against the window like 1,000 tiny whispers of dread. Thunder rolled across the darkened sky, as if warning the unsuspecting souls inside their homes. In this world, shadows flickered across walls, twisting into shapes that haunted movement. Something dark was brewing, and as the clock struck midnight, it pulled on the heartstrings of fate. What was about to unfold was not just a story. It was an invitation to all your fears, raw and unfiltered. That was the night everything changed for Charlie. He had been tucked in, flipping through stories meant to amuse and entertain. But there was something strange about the book he found at the dusty edge of an old bookstore, a volume bound in cracked leather, its pages yellowed and curling. The cover read, 50 Disturbing Horror Stories. But it felt more like a warning. Each tale he read vibrated with a sinister energy, gripping him like icy fingers around his throat. The words seemed to slither off the page, whispering secrets, igniting a tightness in his chest. With each turn of the page, the air thickened with foreboding. A tale of a woman who vanished without a trace sent chills racing up his spine. The story's imagery remained vivid. Eerie whispers in the wind and haunting echoes that warped into screams. A shiver crawled down his back. What if he was reading about real events? He could feel the icy tendrils of fear wrapping around him, drawing him deeper into worlds where logic crumbled. Suddenly, the sharp sound of thunder cracked the night. It jolted him from his thoughts. Outside, a figure stood against the swirling sheet of rain, partially obscured beneath a wide-brimmed hat. Was it his imagination, or was someone watching him? The tension in his room surged, thick as the storm outside. His heart raced, pounding against his ribcage like a prisoner trying to escape. Was that a flash of movement in the shadows? He couldn't look away. He felt like prey under a predator's scrutiny. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As Charlie returned to his book, the next story unfurled in a twisted display, describing a man who had lost his own reflection, but he felt a change in the room. The air thickened, the rain outside seemed louder, as if all nature held its breath. And just like that, he sensed it, a cold draft sweeping through, followed by another ominous thud. The lights flickered, sending a warning plea for safety. What was happening? The tension spiraled as he glanced at the window again, only to find no stranger there, just his isolated reflection staring back. Or was it? The next page turned, and suddenly, the lines blurred between the terrible stories and his own reality. What if he wasn't alone? What if the echoes he heard weren't just part of the rain? The book, purring and whispering deep, called to him. Charlie's pulse quickened, a lump forming in his throat. All he could think was this book pulling him into a dark abyss that he couldn't escape? As he clutched it tightly, the question echoed in the back of his mind, what if the next story was about him? A loud crash of lightning illuminated his small room, casting wild shadows that danced like phantoms on the walls. Charlie's hand trembled as he gripped the book tighter. The stories, layered with horror, felt less like entertainment and more like an imminent reality. He swallowed hard, mouth dry, and stared into the space where his reflection had been. The image seemed to ripple, and he blinked in disbelief. No, it couldn't be. He had to be imagining things. But the corner of the room was darker than it should be, almost as if something was lurking there, waiting for the right moment to spring forth. Just then, a chilling whisper rustled through the air, barely discernible through the storm outside. Charlie glanced over his shoulder, but nothing stirred. Just the rain relentlessly drumming against the window, a haunting accompaniment to his rising panic as the next story unfolded in the book. He could swear he could hear it reading itself aloud, the words wrapping around him like a noose. It told of a boy who found a mirror that reflected not just his image but twisted versions of his deepest fears. Charlie felt that knot in his chest deepen. What if that boy was him? What if the reflection becoming unmoored was not just fiction? The lights flickered again, and suddenly everything plunged into darkness. A swell of anxiety washed over him. The silence was deafening, broken only by the rain's relentless patter. With shaky hands, he fumbled for his phone, hoping for even the faintest glow to guide him. But the screen was dead, just like the atmosphere around him. Charlie's heart hammered in his chest as he stumbled back to the window, instinct urging him to look outside. The world was a blur of dark shapes and shadows. But then he saw it. A figure stood beneath the street lamp, cloaked in shadow, watching him. The flickering light barely illuminated the outline of the wide-brimmed hat he had seen earlier. Was it watching him? Was it real? His pulse raced. He felt an inexplicable connection, a call from the unknown. Was it drawing him in? And just then, the book whispered one last promise. The next story is yours. An icy dread crawled down his spine. He didn't want to turn the page. Every instinct screamed at him to stop. But he felt the irresistible pull, as if something inside him was forcing his hand, pushing him deeper into whatever horrifying fate awaited on the other side of those pages. With a sharp intake of breath, Charlie flipped the page, and the words exploded into chaotic life. They twisted like living creatures, forming images that assaulted his senses, wrapping him in a cocoon of terror. The protagonist of the tale was hunted by monsters, but the worst fear of all loomed closer. The monster was a reflection of himself. A bone-chilling laugh echoed from somewhere deep in the book, and the shadows in the corners slithered closer. Confusion and fear melded, and Charlie stumbled back from the window, heart racing. The pounding of the rain crescendoed into a roar, drowning everything out. He could hardly breathe. What had he unleashed? Suddenly, the lights burst back to life, revealing his room once more. But something was different. He wasn't alone after all. A low whisper filled the air, chilling the blood in his veins. "Charlie, it's time to come out and play." He blinked, staring wide-eyed at the dark corner where he had glimpsed movement before. Shadows twisted and writhed, and from those depths, a figure began to materialize, stepping into the faint light with a smile that could only be described as sinister. Who or what was it? He felt the ground shift beneath him, and panic surged once more. Was this another story? Or was this reality? And then, he heard the book whisper again, this time so much clearer. "Turn back now, or become one of us," as fear laced his thoughts. Charlie took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. What choice would he make? A chilling silence enveloped him, and just like that, before he could think, the figure lunged forward with inhuman speed. What awaited him on the precipice of this? New horror? The figure surged forward, its presence coiling around Charlie like a snake. He stumbled backward, desperately trying to process what was happening. The outline became clearer in the dim light, revealing an impossibly gaunt face. Sunken eyes glinted with malice, and that infernal smile growing wider. "Let us not play games, Charlie," it said, voice low and dripping with mockery. "You've already opened the door. Now it wants you." Charlie wanted to scream. He wheeled around, searching for a way out, but the walls felt like they were closing in. The warm glow of his table lamp couldn't chase away the encroaching shadows. He felt like an insect caught in a spider's web, dread tightening around him. The book lay open on the floor, its pages flickering like the lightning outside. The words on the page shimmered, taunting him. They seemed both familiar and foreign, pulsing with life of their own. It was as though they, too, were alive, demanding action. He had to look away from the figure, he just had to. But something kept pulling his gaze back. The figure swayed slightly, beckoning him closer. "Can't you see? We're in the same story now," it hissed, and Charlie felt icy fingers of fear crawl up his spine. "Why are you doing this?" he managed to croak, his voice trembling. "I haven't done anything to you." The words felt weak even as they escaped his lips, but he held onto them like a lifeline. Our destinies are twisted, Charlie, the figure replied, its smile not faltering. You've set this in motion. The moment you opened that book, you became part of it. You can't turn back now. With each word, Charlie could feel the panic swelling inside him like a storm ready to burst. He had to fight it. The stories he thought he could navigate. They felt like chains now, binding him as they whispered his fears. What do you want? He shouted, desperation fueling his voice. Freedom, my dear Charlie. Freedom that you have the power to give or take away. The figure's smile split wider, eyes gleaming with the promise of chaos. Simple. All you need to do is embrace the change. Let yourself be part of the tale. Thick silence fell between them, the rain pounding like a war drum outside. He sensed the pulse of the book calling to him, echoing within his chest. Join him, join us, it whispered, tightening its grip on his mind. Charlie's heart raced as he felt the air around him shift, the shadows beneath the bed creeping forward, hungry for his fear. He could taste the acrid tang of panic on his tongue. No, he shouted, summoning what courage he had left. I want to play this game. But the figurative threads that connected him to the book tangled tighter, binding him to the narrative he loathed. The laughter that erupted from the figure was a sound that rattled his bones, filling his mind with grotesque images of despair. Then, with a sudden movement, the figure lunged before Charlie could react. It was like a nightmare given form, malicious intent woven into every instinct. Charlie gasped, eyes wide. He threw himself to the side, narrowly avoiding the grasp of the thing that sought to claim him. He scrambled across the floor, breathless, and found himself staring desperately at the open book, the source of his terror. He could feel the pull of the pages, the power they held. If he could just rewrite the ending suddenly, the room went cold. The shadows seeped into the corners, the figure looming larger than life against the flickering light. It's too late, Charlie, it said. You are already written. The ink is still wet. Then let me erase it, he shouted, intensity surging from his core. The figure paused, surprised. If I'm part of it, I can decide how it ends. But was that true? Could he rewrite his fate, or would that lead him deeper into the abyss? As Charlie stared into the eyes of the creature that mirrored his fears, a shocking thought struck him. Behind that sinister smile lay a truth he had yet to confront. What if the key to his escape was not in defeating the monster, but in confronting the person reflected back in that twisted shadow? And as lightning crackled outside, a new voice echoed in the back of his mind, as sharp as glass. What if embracing the darkness was the only path to freedom? The tension mounted, and time slipped away as Charlie faced his haunting reflection. What would he choose? Charlie felt the ground shift beneath him as the realization settled in. He was standing at the edge of a cliff, and the abyss beckoned him closer. The figure lost its wavering shape for a moment, transforming into something less grotesque yet equally unsettling, a distorted version of himself. The mirror-like reflection mocked him. Embrace it, Charlie, it said, the voice slithering through the air like smoke. You can't escape what you truly are. You're just as twisted as I am. He could feel every heartbeat echoing in the silence, like an alarm ringing in his ears. The shadows now danced at his feet, swirling like a dark tide trying to pull him under. No, he gasped, his voice cracking. I'm not like you. The figure laughed, a low, cruel sound that reverberated in the corners of the room. Denial won't help you. How many times have you turned away from your own darkness, wrapped in your own stories, refusing to face what lies beneath? Charlie's mind raced, and he considered the isolation he'd chosen, the stories that had pulled him away from the light. Every page he had read, every tale he had told himself, built up a barrier against his fears. But I can't just join me. Then, the figure insisted, its voice now a whisper, almost seductive. You have the chance to become something greater, something powerful. All you have to do is stop fighting. A surge of chaotic energy coursed through Charlie's body. He could feel the ink of the book in his veins, ready to sweep him into a new narrative. The thought of giving in sparked something in him, a flicker of hope, perhaps. Yet, The figure's smile remained grotesque and twisted, feeding off his uncertainty. Rejecting me won't change anything, it taunted. You cannot run away from a fate you have written yourself. Charlie felt defeated. The world around him blurred, the lines of reality fraying as shadows climbed the walls like ivy. He thought of all the stories he cherished, the characters that were his friends' saviors even. But were they, or were they all a facade, hiding the truth of what he had become? Do you want to rewrite your tale? The figure's voice slid through the air like ice, shattering his resolve. Or do you want to remain a spectator, trapped in the margins of a story you fear? Lightning flashed again, illuminating the room and casting their distorted forms into stark relief. The shadows leaped and lunged as if daring him to choose. Charlie stumbled back. A sudden thought gripped him, rising from the depths of his mind. What if I authored my own ending? Then you must first fall into the abyss. Only there can you find the truth. Only there can freedom be carved from chaos. A tremor ran through him as the walls pulsated with his muffled cries. But it's terrifying. Do you think it's not? The figure laughed again, a sound that chilled his soul. Yet he could see something more behind the laughter, a longing for acceptance. To face the darkness is true bravery. Charlie, what's scarier? To fall or to stand still knowing you're not whole? Charlie took a shuddering breath, eyes flickering between the figure and the open book. What would happen if he let go? If he surrendered? In that heartbeat of silence, he felt the pull grow stronger, the shadows reshaping, waiting for his choice. What if he fell? What if he soared? The ominous presence pressed closer, a shadow becoming solid. The ink is still wet, Charlie. What will you write next? He felt the weight of 1,000 unwritten tales falling onto his shoulders. Heart racing, he took a step forward, knowing whatever he decided would change everything. And as he reached for the book, a deafening crack of thunder split the sky. The room shook and the walls seemed to tremble in anticipation for what was to come. What was the next story he would create? Would it be one of despair or a tale of confrontation against the darkness within? His fingers grazed the pages of the book, feeling the electric pulse of energy within. The air shifted, thickening with anticipation. He knew this moment, this choice was pivotal. It would shape him either into something monstrous like the reflection before him or into the hero of his own story. Fighting won't save you, the figure hissed, inching closer, its features twisting into a nightmarish grin. You crave the chaos as much as I do. You know it's true. Charlie's heart pounded in his chest, rallying against the cold fear coiling around him. Within the depths of the shadows, he could sense the truth of its words creeping in, like vines embracing a tree. What if he truly was no better than the twisted creature before him? The moment of truth had arrived. Inhaling sharply, he gripped the book tighter, feeling a surge of courage rising amidst the tide of doubt. I refuse to let you control my narrative. The laughter stopped abruptly. The figure's eyes flared with something resembling anger? Or was it fear? You think you can defy me? That you can rewrite your fate? Foolish child. Charlie's mind raced. His gaze darted from the grotesque reflection to the jagged cliff dropping into nothingness. He turned back to the book, forcing his thoughts to solidify. I will not join you. He cried out, tearing his eyes away from the shadow's sickly smile. As if responding to his defiance, the storm outside howled louder. Rain began to batter the window, rivulets racing down the glass. The shadows around him convulsed, the air thick with raw, restless energy. Then let us find out what happens when you reject the dark. The figure lunged forward, twisting and elongating, its form becoming a harpoon of darkness aimed straight at Charlie's heart. Charlie leapt aside, adrenaline coursing through him as the figure whizzed past, slamming into the wall with an anguished wail. An opportunity. He saw the doorway, his chance to escape. Yet, with every movement, he could feel the shadows clawing at him, whispering venomously, "You're not free. We will follow you." He sprinted towards the exit, desperate to escape the chaos that threatened to consume him. Just as he reached the door, the ground bucked beneath him, throwing him off balance. He stumbled, arms flailing, fighting to regain his footing. The echo of the creature's laughter filled the room again. You can't run. The abyss is with you wherever you go. You wrote it into being. With a resolve he didn't truly feel, Charlie pushed through the door and into the corridor outside. It was dark, the faint glow of distant lights flickering like dying stars. His breath came in ragged gasps as he rushed down the hall, desperately seeking an escape, but behind him, the clattering of footsteps echoed ominously. He turned sharply toward a door marked with peeling paint, forcing it open. The room beyond was dimly lit, filled with silence and dust. Felt like some sort of sanctuary, but as he stepped inside, he realized it was far from comforting. The walls were lined with images of shadows, distorted creatures that seemed to watch him with knowing eyes. A shiver ran down his spine. "Oh, Charlie!" A voice purred from the darkness of the corner. It was unmistakably the figure S. "You can't hide from what you've created. You can't escape yourself." Charlie felt trapped, but as he looked around the room, an idea sparked in his mind. If he was to free himself from this nightmare, he needed to confront what lay buried in his heart, the truth he'd avoided for too long. He took a step back and gazed at the distorted reflections, bracing himself for what was to come. What was he truly capable of? Would he rise or would he be pulled under? Face your fears, Charlie. Rewrite your story or be written out. With heart racing and fear gripping him, he prepared to confront the darkness swirling in his soul. What revelation lay hidden in the shadows? Would he transform the terror into strength, or would it consume him entirely? Charlie's eyes darted across the room, landing on the haunting figures lining the walls. Each twisted silhouette seemed alive, whispering secrets of despair and dread. He felt a shudder ripple through him, a cold reality settling in. The shadowy figure's voice beckoned, oozing temptation and taunts, wrapping around him like fog on a winter's night. "Do you truly think you can change? Look at them." The figure gestured to the grotesque depictions, its voice a slick, oily whisper. "They are you. Every fear crafted, every regret made flesh." A lump formed in Charlie's throat as he recalled every missed opportunity and cowardly retreat. Memories clawed at him, flickering like images on a broken screen. He shunned the shadow's prophetic words, unwilling to become another victim of false despair. "Stop it," he shouted, hands clenching into fists. "I'm not like them." "Oh, but you are," the figure taunted, its grin widening predatorily. "You're all that you deny." Charlie took a deep breath, grounding himself. He had to dig deeper than the fear pooling inside him. He glanced at a distant corner of the room where the shadows thickened, swirling like a cyclone. Maybe that was where the truth lay buried or trapped. "Show me," he cried, stepping forward. With every stride, he could feel the room pulse, resonating with each footfall. The figures seemed to leer, shoving their nightmarish forms closer as if urging him to retreat. But retreat was not an option. Not anymore as he stepped closer. The shadows beckoned, morphing into something familiar, a reflection of his own insecurities and failings. Memories played in his mind like a terrible film reel. The time he ran from a fight, the moment he let his friends down, the way he turned away from love. "Just look. Face the truth. Admit your darkness." The shadow's voice grew more insistent, writhing around him, lashing like a whip. Charlie felt the energy shift, a thunderous roar rising in intensity. "I'm not here to accept darkness," he shouted back, fingers trembling at his sides. "I want to conquer it." Suddenly, the room shook violently. Dust cascaded from the rafters, images on the walls swirling together, coalescing into one magnificent beast of shadow and light. As it lunged towards him, Charlie instinctively shielded himself, but felt a wave of heat wash over him instead of cold, a flicker of clarity cutting through the storm. And in that moment, he saw a path, embracing his fears, not shying away. Rather than recoil from the monstrous truth, he had to acknowledge it. "I am flawed," he yelled, his heart pounding in sync with the chaos surrounding him. "I am real, and I refuse to hide." The room responded with an explosive brightness, illuminating the void, its edges softening. The figures screeched, shriveling against the light, their forms disintegrating into specks of darkness. But Charlie felt the pull of something deeper, a connection to the shadows that remained. He couldn't ignore them, they were part of him. The realization washed over him like relief and terror intertwined. "I will learn from you, not succumb to you," he whispered, feeling the tremors settle as the remaining darkness swirled around him, calming like a storm after a deluge. But just as he caught his breath, a crack of lightning illuminated the room, revealing a doorway he hadn't noticed before. It hovered, beckoning him with an eerie glow. Was it the way to freedom or another trap? The chill returned, creeping along his spine like a warning. With one hesitant step toward the doorway, he questioned everything. What lay beyond could lead to bitter truths or unexpected redemption. What awaited him on the other side? Would it be a true escape or the embodiment of all his fears waiting to ensnare him again? With dread and anticipation fueling his resolve, he approached the threshold, ready to confront whatever awaited him. The air grew thick with anticipation as Charlie took his first step toward the glowing door. It pulsed, a heartbeat against the darkness, promising revelations or nightmares. He felt his heart race, pounding loudly in his chest. What lay beyond wasn't just an escape but a confrontation. As he crossed the threshold, a gust of icy wind swept through him. He gasped, the chill lacerating the warmth of his newfound clarity. He stumbled into another realm, a vast expanse filled with rolling mist that twisted and weaved like a living thing. Shadows danced at the edge of his vision, and Charlie's breath caught as he sensed both familiarity and menace in the air. "Welcome," a voice echoed, soft and sinister, floating around him. It seemed to come from every direction, wrapping around him like thick smoke. Charlie strained to see through the haze, desperation clawing at him as dread bubbled beneath his skin. "Who's there?" he shouted, trying to sound braver than he felt. He clenched his fists, grounding himself in the moment, recalling his promise to learn from the darkness. "Ah, a seeker, how delightful." The voice turned sultry then, breathing honeyed words laced with poison. "You've stepped beyond the veil of ignorance." The mist parted, revealing a figure cloaked in shadows. Its eyes glowed like embers, sending shivers racing down Charlie's spine. "You think you can conquer what you fear? Silly boy." In an instant, memories crashed over him, harder than before. Faces from his past, disappointed friends, and lovers turned away. Each visage felt like a blade, cutting through the resolve he had built. "No," he yelled, but the figure only smiled wider, baring teeth sharper than knives. "You must confront them. Face what you fear," it taunted, gesturing into the mist that now swirled with ghostly forms. "But they won't make it easy." Before Charlie could respond, shadows erupted around him, swirling and coiling like serpents. They were his fear made real, each form twisted and doubling back on itself. With wide eyes, he saw himself in their faces, his hands trembling at the memories they embodied. "Fight back," the whispering figure urged, now nearer, hot breath on his ear sending chills through his entire being. "Fight or be consumed." The air crackled with tension as Charlie braced himself. "I'm not afraid," he shouted, not entirely convinced. He drew courage from the warmth he had discovered in the room before, the flicker of light still sparking within him. Summoning his will, he surged forward, the shadows lunging back, hissing like a frightened animal. But they were relentless, coiling closer, aiming to drag him into their depths, where hopes and dreams were extinguished. He could feel them reaching for him, chilling tendrils grazing his skin. "You can't resist," they sneered, their voices blending into one chaotic roar. "No," he shouted once more, his voice rising above the cacophony. Images of laughter and love flooded his mind, memories that anchored him. "I embrace all of me." With that declaration, the shadows recoiled, momentarily stunned. Perhaps they weren't just enemies. Maybe they were the fears he had shunned. But they also held the lessons he desperately needed. As he pushed through the wave of darkness, dim light started to seep into the mist, illuminating the grotesque shapes surrounding him. "I see you," he whispered, "and I'm still standing." But just then, A loud crack echoed through the air, and the ground beneath his feet shook violently. A rift opened, bright and blinding, threatening to consume him whole. Charlie stumbled back, his heart racing as the shadows howled in fury. They thrashed against the light, clawing at him, urging him to submit. Desperately, he glanced at the rift, feeling the gravitational pull of that uncertainty. Could he leap into the light, or would he tumble back into familiar darkness? As the rift expanded, Charlie made his choice, stepping forward into the unknown. It was the only way to transform the dread into strength, to finally reshape his destiny. But in that fleeting moment, a chilling voice wrapped around him. You can't escape. We'll find you. What awaited him on the other side? Would he embrace the lessons waiting ahead or be consumed by the shadows he had once feared? The doorway to his fate loomed, and Charlie stood, heart racing, ready to confront the truth within himself. The light engulfed him, blinding and fierce. Charlie felt a sensation like being pulled through water, swirls of color and sound engulfing all he knew. He gasped, each breath a struggle as he tumbled into what felt like a whirlpool of chaos. With a sudden jolt, he landed hard on damp grass. Charlie blinked against the brightness of the sun, the shadows of the previous realm fading like bad dreams. The air smelled crisp and sweet, but a sense of foreboding clung to him. He pushed himself up, shaking off remnants of the mist. Where was he? Around him spread a sprawling meadow, a wild sea of wildflowers swaying in an invisible breeze. Yet something was off. The colors were too vibrant, almost sickly, and the birds that flitted overhead sang a hauntingly dissonant tune. Just ahead, he spotted a figure sitting on a weathered bench, their back turned toward him. Instinctively, Charlie felt a warmth trickle through his chest, a sign of hope. Maybe this person could offer guidance. "Excuse me?" he called, taking a few tentative steps closer. The figure didn't move. Charlie frowned, unease prickling at the nape of his neck. "Hello?" The figure slowly turned, and a chill snaked down Charlie's spine. It was a woman, her face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. Yet the shadow cast over her features couldn't hide the gleaming smile that split her face, stretching impossibly wide. "Welcome to the other side, Charlie," she drawled, her voice sultry and smooth. "How do you know my name?" he demanded, heart pounding hard again. He glanced around, searching for an escape, but the meadow felt alive, as if it were closing in on him. "Oh, we know everything about you." Her grin widened, and she lifted a gloved hand, pointing towards a mountain looming in the distance. "And you've only just begun your journey. Your fears were only a whisper compared to what lies ahead." Charlie's breath quickened as she continued. "The light you sought? It reveals, but it also binds. The shadows follow, always hungry." A shiver raced through his body, and the world around him seemed to pulsate with an ominous energy. "I fought them," he shouted, desperation clawing at his throat. "They won't consume me." "Oh, my dear," she laughed, a sound chilling enough to freeze the blood in his veins. "In this world, they are not just shadows. They are the very fabric of what defines you. To resist is to break." As she spoke, the ground beneath him trembled, tiny fissures appearing in the soil, spewing a thick black mist. The exhilaration from confronting his past now turned to dread. Images from the mist flared in his mind, mingling with the tangible darkness crawling from the cracks. Each breath felt heavy, laden with panic. "Do you want to know the truth?" She smirked, tilting her head slightly as if studying him. "You can't run forever. In fact, you're invited to join the dance." "What dance?" he whispered, feeling the weight of her words clutching at his throat. "Ah, Charlie," her voice was a honeyed promise, dark and alluring. "The dance of confronting what you truly fear. Take my hand and see." The temptation was strong, yet a small voice inside shouted for him to refuse. A moment of hesitation gnawed at him. Could he trust her? But before he could make a decision, tendrils of black mist erupted from the cracks, swirling around him, tugging at his limbs. He felt their icy fingers slide around his wrists, pulling him toward the mountains in the distance. A chorus of voices shouted from below, his name woven through fear and despair. Without a choice, Charlie watched the mountain grow larger, the edge of the world binding him to the truth and terror duality he needed to face. As the shadows yanked him closer to the brink, a thought broke through the terror. What if this was the moment he found his inner light, or was it simply a deeper darkness that awaited him? The mountain loomed ahead, stark and imperious, and as he braced himself to meet his fate, he felt the icy grip of shadows tighten, and the words rippled through the air with finality. "You are not alone. We are always watching." With his heart pounding, Charlie faced the towering cliff in front of him, and he knew that somewhere within, the truth awaited, a truth that could either shatter him or rebuild him from within. The choice lay just steps ahead, and as he took breath after breath, an unexpected chill ran up his spine. What lay on the other side was ready to be unveiled. But could he endure the cost of revelation? Would he pay the ultimate price to save what little light remained? The shadows twisted and pulled him, each tug an echo of his own deepest fears. Charlie couldn't scream. The grip of the darkness was suffocating, wrapping tighter around him like serpents coiling for a kill. He dug his heels in, trying to resist their relentless pull, but his strength faltered with each passing moment. As he teetered on the brink of the unknown, he could feel the ground beneath him start to crumble, the meadow fading into a whirl of colors and screams. "Listen." The woman's voice broke through the chaos, inviting yet terrifying. "You must acknowledge your shadows before they consume you." Charlie's heart raced as he glanced back toward her, the hat still blocking most of her face. "What do you mean? What do I need to do?" She stood slowly, an almost liquid grace to her movements. He watched, horrified, as the shadows swirling around him fluctuated in response to her presence, flickering like candle flames in the wind. "You must embrace the dance," she cooed, her voice wrapped in promise and peril. "The dance that reveals the essence of your soul. The truths you've hidden are ready for their grand performance." The mist began to swirl faster, forming shapes, lamenting whispers swirling around him, echoing regrets and lost dreams. He could make out snippets of laughter and cries, the blend creating a haunting melody that tugged painfully at his heart. "No," he gasped, stepping back from the edge, desperation coursing through him. "I can't. I want tea." "Oh, but you must," she insisted, a hint of urgency creeping into her tone. "You have been chosen, Charlie. You are at the cusp of your transformation. The dance demands a willing partner." Suddenly, the shadows pulled with a vengeance, dragging him closer to the mountain now etched against an ominous sky. Its jagged peaks clawed at the air, sharp and beckoning. A dull throbbing ignited behind his eyes as another wave of darkness came crashing, flooding over him, memories swirling, crashing against his defenses. He saw visions of his past flash vividly before him. The faces of people he'd lost, the regrets he buried, the endless nights filled with what-ifs. Blinding pain shot through his chest. Charlie staggered, clutching at himself, emotion choking him as he gasped for air. "Mark your fears, Charlie," the woman urged, now inches before him, her smile unwavering, yet darkened. "They are puppet masters of your existence. Face them or remain a prisoner in your own mind." His chest tightened painfully at the suggestion. Prisoner? The thought was unbearable, and the way the mist wrapped around him, forming grotesque shapes, told him how real this threat was. But what if facing them meant unlocking something terrible within himself? "I don't know if I can," he whispered, despair curling his words. "Then you will remain a shadow in this realm," she said, her voice dropping to a chilling whisper. "Just like those who came before you." Images swam before him, silhouettes of lost souls, none of whom had returned from the mountainous grasp. Each specter was a haunting reminder of what could be, and for the first time, he felt the weight of utter loneliness settle in his bones. "What must I do?" The question slipped out before he could stop it. "Take a step forward," she said, extending her gloved hand toward him, glimmering with a light, "call it hope, or maybe a trick." Charlie wavered, the shadows writhing at his feet, pushing against him with a force that felt all too inviting. A piece of him wanted desperately to reach out, to give in to the embrace of this dismal dance, to face whatever lay ahead. But what would he find there, redemption or ruin? Just as he inhaled, preparing to either plunge forward or pull back, the ground trembled violently beneath him. The mountain rumbled, its call escalating, drowning out the whispers and shoving him backward, toward the edge that felt more like a precipice of despair. That's when he heard it, a guttural roar from the mountain, raw and hungry. Panic sliced through him like ice. "Charlie," the woman hissed, her voice now a siren call, seductive yet filled with menace. Time is running out, and just as the shadows began to collapse around him, tightening their grip as if sensing his hesitation, something flickered in his heart, a glimmer of courage fighting against the tide. One choice could end everything, yet also be the lifeline he desperately needed. In that fleeting moment, with darkness swirling and the mountain roaring, Charlie braced himself to take a step. He could feel the shadows slackening, but would it be enough to break free from the impending storm? He knew one thing for certain. He was teetering on the edge of something monumental, and every instinct urged him to leap into the unknown. But would he fall into freedom or oblivion? Would he find a light to cling to, or be swallowed whole by the very darkness he sought to confront? With that thought hanging heavy in the air, the world around him began to fracture. The dance awaited. The choice lay before him. What would he decide? And just as Charlie inhaled deeply to gather his resolve, another rumble echoed, violently pulling him deeper into the abyss. What awaited him below would test everything he thought he knew. The shadows recoiled as Charlie stepped forward, a feeling of resolve flooding through his veins like a warm balm against the chill. The mountainous roar faded into a pulsating heartbeat, syncing with his own. He was terrified, yes, but he refused to be a prisoner forever. Every tremor beneath him was a reminder of his potential, both dark and light. He could feel the daunting presence of the woman still offering her hand, probing his deepest fears and more. "I refuse to let fear guide me," he declared, pushing back against the darkness that sought to wrap around him like chains. Images of lost friends and unclaimed memories flickered before his eyes, but he didn't flinch. He would no longer run from what he was. This journey was his chance to confront himself. "Step into the light, Charlie," she urged softly, though her voice carried an undercurrent of something sinister. "Embrace the shadows, for they are part of your truth." Charlie steadied himself, knowing he had only one choice: to leap. He lunged forward, springing with every ounce of courage he could muster, willing himself to dive into whatever awaited him on the other side. The instant he hit the ground, he felt the ground shift, a combination of cool earth and warm sunlight wrapped around him. Beautiful beams of light poured from above, illuminating the once ominous mountain. As he blinked rapidly, the shadows around him shrank, squeezing into the recesses of his mind, each one retreating in a vain attempt to cling to their grip. Suddenly, he was no longer in the meadow of turmoil but on the precipice of a new existence. Everything was vibrant and alive, bathed in golden light that felt empowering. Here, the shadows transformed into colorful specters swirling around him, their features softening into comforting expressions that told him he was not alone anymore. "Welcome to the truth," a voice whispered from behind. He turned to see a figure emerging, another version of himself, brighter and more confident. "You are free, Charlie, free to explore the stories yet unwritten." The realization struck him like clarity breaking through a fog. It wasn't the end of his journey. It was merely the beginning of a new narrative. The fear still lingered in the back of his mind, but it no longer overwhelmed him. He could see it now. Those once terrifying shadows were reminders of what he had faced, the weight he had shouldered, but they no longer defined him. "What do I do now?" he asked, gazing into the shining reflection of his potential. "Create," his other self replied, voice rich with hope. "You decide the stories that shape you. Write fiercely, own your fears, and let the light guide you." Charlie felt a rush of exhilaration, the kind that swells the heart and captures the essence of hope. The world around him shimmered and swayed, inviting him to write new tales filled with courage instead of horror. Suddenly, he recalled the ancient book that led him here, a vessel of darkness that turned into a catalyst for transformation. Can I go back for it? He questioned, thoughts churning wildly. Yes. But remember, Charlie, it's not the book that holds power. It's you. The ink is yours to control. With that, he turned, a flicker of determination igniting inside him as he sprinted back toward the shimmering light of the doorway. He could feel the vibrancy radiating against his skin, urging him forward. As he crossed back into the dimmest depths, there it lay, his past, the book still open, its pages fluttering as if alive. You can write your own ending, the whisper returned, woven thick with encouragement as he snatched the book in his hands. Charlie inhaled deeply, grounding himself in the moment. He placed a hand against the spine, feeling the tremble of the unearthed terror. You'll serve my journey, he stated resolutely. He turned the pages, his heart racing, no longer afraid of the monsters lurking in the shadows. Each word transformed as he began to write anew, crafting stories filled with wisdom and resilience. With every stroke, he felt chains unravel. The whispers of the past faded into the noise of insignificant winds. Light flooded every crevice, darkness and truth mingling into vivid colors, illuminating the broken pieces. He was no longer waiting, no longer the frightened boy who let tales of horror consume him. As he stood triumphant, he could feel the warmth of the new light wrapping around him, mingling freely with the shadows he once feared. He smiled, standing before the unknown with open arms. He was ready to embrace this new world where fear was just another part of his story, not the crux of his existence. With a firm resolution, Charlie stepped back into the golden field of possibility, ready to chase where the ink might take him next. And just like that, with fear and hope intertwined, he soared into the undiscovered horizons of his own narrative. Don't you wish you could step into a transformative journey like Charlie's? You need to subscribe now, so you don't fall behind on the next exclusive stories that dive into your soul. Smash that like button now to help us reach even more daring souls in our community. Flood the comments section below with your reactions, thoughts, and theories about Charlie's journey. Let's talk about it. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need a spark of courage in their lives. This is the moment to show your support. Together, let's keep exploring the depths of storytelling.